So, welcome to another episode of our podcast from the White House live. So, tell us what's happening. We are around 10 days away from the midterm elections, a very crucial midterm elections. Can you give our viewers an insight into this? What's going to happen on November 8th?
Right now, the Republicans are pretty enthusiastic about what's going to happen. It is usually the case that the opposing party takes control in the midterm. So if the president were a Republican, it's most likely the Democrats would take the House, vice versa. But now, before July, August, Democrats were pretty hopeful because they had seen the reversal of Roe versus Wade and they had seen the passage of the Inflation Reduction Act. Both work to Democrats' advantage. But however, with inflation lingering on people's minds, Republicans are using that as a weapon to achieve the midterms, and it looks like they will.
So, if you go by the past trend, historical perspective, it's Republicans' turn to get control of the House. But normally the midterm elections doesn't generate that much excitement as is this time now. Can you give us the reason why it is so?
The elephant in the room, Donald Trump. There's this a lot of election denial right now going on. The rule among MAGA Republicans is if we win, we win. If we lose, we call the election a fraud, election denialism. Over 100 Republicans right now are running on various tickets, throughout the states, who are election deniers. This is throwing the whole democratic experiment into a chaotic state. We don't know what the results will be because so much of democracy is based on kind of cricket, based on trust, based on the rules of the game. And if you say, well, those rules aren't written down, which most of these rules aren't, and somebody says, well, we're just going to make up the rules as we go, then it really does throw into doubt whether we can actually have, at this point, a democratic republic.
Normally during the midterm elections, there is always a low voter turnout. Do you expect it to be low voter turnout or much higher this time?
It will be higher. There have been many polls that have shown that there has been an increased voter turnout. However, one of the main characteristics of Americans is Americans don't vote, especially during the midterms. Democrats are looking to get out the vote for young people. Typically, only about 15% of eligible young voters vote in this country. So that's not a very hopeful strategy.
What are the main issues for the people here this time when they go out and vote?
Every day when they go and fill their car with gas, and they're looking and they're seeing that gas prices are very high. Now, they have been reducing down for many days straight, for weeks. I mean, now gas is at maybe $3.60 a gallon. It had been as high as over $7 a gallon. But Democrats voters are looking at cost of food, basic supplies, cost of rent, the increase in lending rates. If people want to go buy a home, now to buy a home, mortgage rates are topping 7%. So voters are looking at those home-based issues when they're deciding who is better managing this economy. This is despite the fact that from the beginning, when Joe Biden took office, where the unemployment rate was over 6.9%, now it's down to 3.5%. There's been this huge reduction in unemployment, probably the largest unemployment reduction in U.S. history. Americans couldn't care right now because they're looking at these basic bread and butter issues.
But hasn't the gas price in a month and a half or around, has come down by at least $1.25 per gallon? Isn't it a big reduction?
It should be, but it may not be.
Why not?
Americans are very finicky. I mean, one thing that President Biden has been attempting to do is to show that the causes for high fuel prices are not home-based. They're based on the fact that Russia has been invading Ukraine. There has been this stranglehold on gas supplies to Europe, that OPEC has now reduced output to of course, increase the price of fuel again. These are out of President Biden's control. But voters aren't they're looking at him and saying, well, you're the most powerful man in the world. Of course you can fix this. And of course, Democratic leaders are looking at this and going, we're doing what we can, but doing what we can may not be good enough.
So in addition to the economy, the two major parts, the inflation and the food, the gas prices, the supply chain, what are the other issues for the American people here this time?
Well, it's like this with American presidency. American presidents run on domestic issues, but they lead here from the White House on international issues. So there's always this disconnect. And of course, right now, Biden is going to 3 countries this week. He's going to Egypt for the COP27. He is going to Cambodia for the USA Asia conference. And then he is headed down to Indonesia for the G20. Now, the COP27 is critically important because we're at a climate crisis right now, according to the UN. The UN doesn't even think that we can keep the rise of temperature 1.5 centigrade anymore, that it's going to be higher. And it may seem like just a little tiny bit, but it's important to remember that the last ice age, when right here where we're standing, there was a mile-high sheet of ice, that was only due to a temperature change in the world of about 6 degrees. So it doesn't take much to cause a huge problem in the climate, and that's what we're dealing with.
As you said, the president gets elected on domestic issues and leads the country on foreign policy issues,
Right.
international issues. On COP27, is the United States leading on climate change issue? Are the globally people taking the views of U.S. on climate change?
Right now, yes. But global leaders believe that if Donald Trump were to get reelected, that climate denialism would be the rule here in the United States again. Remember, he did pull out of the Paris Climate Accord. And so European leaders are skeptical whether the United States is truly committed to addressing climate change. Now, over in Europe, there is another reason that they are actually pushing for
Right.
renewable energy, and that is that they're losing their supply of natural gas from Russia. So they're building more wind turbines faster. They're doing more to get things going. And China is also developing a huge manufacturing base of solar cells. So they have taken the lead as well. And so the United States is still kind of lagging behind in this respect.
But there are compulsions in Europe as well. I have seen reports of some countries going back to the coal because of the supply chain issue of gas coming out from Russia, right?
That's correct.
Let's go to the other issue about G20 and the US ASEAN Summit. How do you see President Biden leading his country in these 2 summits?
Well, let's talk about the US-Asia first, and then we'll talk about the G20. US-Asia is critical for the United States. President Biden has wanted for the United States to focus on Asian relations. One of the great mistakes that many Democrats feel is that we withdrew from the TPP agreement. Now, there have been many Democrats that also wanted to withdraw from that, including the left-wing Democratic Party, Bernie Sanders, and Hillary Clinton at the very end said that she didn't support it either. Whatever the reasons, that was a leverage that we had to actually be in negotiation with Southeast Asian countries as a bulwark to the presence of China's economic and military might in the South China Sea. China is building up islands, creating land, creating Chinese land artificially in order to make more a greater China. So there has to be, from the United States standpoint, a pushback on that.
So about a week, 3 countries. It's going to be a whirlwind tour for the President Biden soon after the elections. In G20 in Indonesia, Bali, there will be 20 global leaders over there. Putin would be there, Xi Jinping would be there. Any guesses? Is he going to meet both of them or none of them?
I imagine he will meet with them. It's critical that Americans maintain diplomacy no matter what our interests, however our interests converge or diverge. We must continue talking. That is the thinking of President Biden. He has had many years of governmental experience where he knows how important it is to continue talking. I think that many of his advisors, Jake Sullivan, others would think that it would be wrong-headed to ignore Xi Jinping.
Let's see and wait till about 15 days or 20 days from now if President Biden goes and meets President of China and Russia. But definitely I can say that he will meet the Prime Ministers of India and Japan, his 2 critical allies and friends in the Indo-Pacific region. But tell me, give us some scenarios about what happens to President Biden if the Republicans get House or they lose House. What are the various scenarios over there?
If Republicans get the House, there was an article in the Atlantic recently that said if Republicans get the House, they're going to start impeachment proceedings on Kamala Harris. Many people might be shocked by that, but why? But many House members see this as a tit-for-tat scenario. You impeached our president, we're going to impeach your vice president. We may impeach your president, who knows? There is that worry. At the very least, if Republicans take over the House, there's going to be a stasis. There's not going to be too much cooperation going back and forth in terms of building a consensus as to what to do next. This will include perhaps conflicts with the debt ceiling, which could shut down the government again, or worse, lead America into financial default, which would lead to another financial crisis. Those are pretty bad scenarios from any standpoint that we look at things. However, there are pugilists, there are warriors right now that want to fight all the way to get their way. And their way would include reductions in Social Security payments and Medicare benefits. And many Americans right now, they just take it for granted that, hey, we've been paying in a huge amount of our salary for decades, Social Security. So of course we're going to get that. But many Republicans look at that and say those are entitlement programs. That's what they use, the word they use, entitlements. You're entitled to these. Not that people have been paying in for those benefits all this time.
So what I understand from what you have said is post November 8th, after results come in, there greater chance of this country become politically dysfunctional.
Yes.
Is that the right way to explain things?
I think that's perfect way to explain
But that's a very scary situation, not only for the people of this country, but across the world, because a lot of things depend on what U.S. does and thinks from this building.
World leaders are nervous. Furthermore, the United States has been leading the defense of Ukraine. The United States has poured tens of billions of dollars into weapon supplies for Ukraine. They've been the leader of really standing up to Russia. Without that, the rest of the world's effort could collapse. House Republicans have already pledged to reduce military aid to Ukraine. And what does Congress do more than anything else? They control the purse strings.
So whatever the results of this election may be, whoever wins the House, one thing is certain, President Biden is going to remain here for another 2 years at least. Right. With this, thank you so much for watching us. We'll come back to you again next week. Thank you.
Thank you.